The silence was so loud that it hurt. No voices. No footsteps. No metal doors slamming. Just a man sitting alone in a concrete cell, counting his own breaths because it was the only sound left. He had not heard another human voice in years. And that was the punishment. The highest peak of this story came when a prison doctor opened a thick metal door after a long inspection and froze in place. Inside the cell, the inmate did not look up. He did not speak. He did not react. He just kept staring at the wall, slowly moving his fingers as if writing words that no one could see. The doctor whispered to the guard, "I don't think he remembers how to talk." That was the moment everyone realized something terrible. The silence had worked. This prison was not loud like most others. There were no shouted orders. No loud TVs. No inmates yelling to each other. Silence was the rule. Silence was the weapon. The prison sat far from cities, surrounded by empty land and tall fences. From the outside, it looked calm, safe, almost peaceful. Inside, it was different. Inside, silence pressed down on people like weight. The man in the cell was named Daniel Price. He had been there a long time. Longer than most guards had worked at the prison. Some guards had never heard his voice. Daniel's punishment was simple. No talking. No visits. No shared cells. No human contact. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. The low moments came early. At first, Daniel tried to talk. He spoke to guards through the door. "Please," he said. "Can I talk to someone?" No one answered. He talked to himself. Then he whispered. Then he stopped speaking at all. Silence does strange things. It makes time slow down. It makes thoughts louder. It makes small worries feel huge. Daniel counted cracks in the wall. He counted footsteps he could barely hear far away. He counted days by meals. Sometimes, the meals stopped coming on time. That scared him the most. The guards followed strict rules. No eye contact. No talking. No reactions. They slid food through a slot and walked away. Some guards hated it. One said, "This doesn't feel right." Another replied, "Orders are orders." The high moment, if it could be called that, came years earlier. Before the silence. Before the isolation. Before Daniel became a ghost. Daniel had arrived at the prison angry. He yelled. He argued. He caused trouble. He broke rules. The prison responded with silence. They believed it would calm him. They believed it would control him. At first, it seemed to work. Daniel stopped yelling. Then he stopped arguing. Then he stopped reacting. That's when the silence changed. It stopped being a tool. It became a cage. Guards started noticing small things. Daniel stopped looking at them. He stopped eating full meals. He slept at strange hours. Sometimes he stood in the corner for hours without moving. One guard wrote in a report, "Inmate appears disconnected." Another wrote, "Inmate does not respond to verbal commands." But nothing changed. The silence continued. Years passed. New guards heard stories about Daniel. "Don't talk to him," they were told. "He's been alone too long." One young guard broke the rule once. He paused at the door. Quietly, he said, "Good morning." Daniel did not answer. He did not even turn around. The guard walked away shaken. The prison doctor was finally called when Daniel stopped responding to lights, meals, and movement. That was the day the door opened. The doctor stepped inside. The silence felt thick. Daniel sat on the floor, back to the wall. His lips moved slightly. No sound came out. That was the extreme moment that ended Chapter 1. Because as the doctor watched, Daniel slowly lifted his head and whispered a word so soft it barely existed. "Hello." The doctor's heart dropped. Because that meant Daniel had not spoken in so long. He was no longer sure if anyone could hear him anymore. The doctor did not answer right away. He stood still, afraid that even a sound might break something fragile. Daniel's whisper hung in the air. "Hello." It sounded like a question from someone who wasn't sure what a voice was anymore. The guard behind the doctor cleared his throat. Daniel flinched. His shoulders tightened. His hands pressed flat against the floor. It was the first clear reaction he had shown in a long time. The doctor spoke slowly. "Daniel," he said. "My name is Dr. Miller. I'm here to check on you." Daniel did not turn around. But his fingers stopped moving. That alone felt like a miracle. This was the low moment for everyone involved. Because it was clear now. The silence had gone too far. Daniel had been placed in this unit after a long string of rule violations. He shouted at guards. He argued with other inmates. He refused orders. The prison believed silence would calm him. They believed silence would teach him control. At first, Daniel fought it. He yelled through the door. He banged on the walls. He begged guards to answer. No one did. Days passed. Then weeks. The human brain is not built for nothing. Not for empty sound. Not for endless quiet. Daniel started hearing things that were not there. Footsteps that never came close. Voices that vanished when he listened harder. He pressed his ear to the door, just to feel less alone. The high moment, if it could be called that, came when Daniel stopped fighting. The report said he was compliant. The guards wrote, "Inmate no longer disruptive." The silence was labeled a success. But inside Daniel's mind, something else was happening. His thoughts became louder than the world. Memories played again and again. Mistakes. Regrets. Faces he could barely remember. Without people, time lost meaning. Daniel stopped counting days. He stopped counting meals. He started counting breaths. 1 breath. 2 breaths. 3 breaths. Sometimes he forgot the number and had to start over. The guards noticed changes. Daniel stopped standing when they came. He stopped looking toward the door. He stopped reacting at all. One guard, Officer James, wrote in a report. "Inmate does not respond to commands. Possible mental decline." The report was filed. Nothing changed. That was the system. Silence created problems. Problems were written down. And then ignored. Years passed this way. New guards arrived. Old guards left. Daniel stayed. Some guards avoided the unit. They said it felt wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. One guard said, "It feels like a tomb." Another replied, "That's the point." When Dr. Miller finally stepped into the cell, he saw things that worried him deeply. Daniel's eyes did not focus normally. His movements were slow. His skin was pale from lack of light. "Daniel," the doctor said gently, "do you know where you are?" Daniel's lips moved. No sound. He tried again. Still nothing. The doctor changed his approach. "Can you hear me?" Daniel nodded once. Barely. That nod was the high point of the day. Because it meant Daniel was still there. Somewhere. Dr. Miller requested changes. "Short conversations," he said. "Human contact. Supervised interaction." The request was denied. "Security risk," the response said. The silence continued. Days later, something unexpected happened. A guard slipped. During meal delivery, the tray jammed in the slot. The guard muttered under his breath, "Damn thing." Daniel heard it. A real voice. Not imagined. Not remembered. He froze. His heart raced. He moved closer to the door. "Please," he whispered. The guard froze too. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the guard pulled the tray free and walked away. No reply. No words. But it was too late. The silence had cracked. Daniel waited all night. He stood by the door. He whispered words to the empty hallway. Testing them. Remembering how they felt. "Hello. Please. Anyone." The next morning, Daniel was found sitting upright, eyes open, staring at the door. He had not slept. That was the extreme moment that ended Chapter 2. Because when guards checked the cameras, they saw Daniel standing at the door, moving his mouth over and over. And this time, he was not whispering to himself. He was practicing how to speak again. The guards noticed the change right away. Daniel was standing when they came. Not pressed into the corner. Not sitting on the floor. Standing. Waiting. He faced the door now. That alone felt strange. For years, he had turned away from it. Like the door did not exist. Officer James stopped longer than usual. He watched through the small window. Daniel looked back. Their eyes met. James felt a chill run through him. Daniel spoke. It was not clear. It was not strong. But it was real. "Hi." James stepped back. He did not answer. But he did not walk away either. That was the low moment for the prison. Because they realized something important. The silence was breaking. And they did not know what would happen next. Dr. Miller returned that afternoon. He insisted. "I need to see him again," he said. His trying to speak. This time, the door was opened with more care. 2 guards stood close. The doctor stepped inside. Daniel turned fully toward him. His mouth opened. The word came out slow. Broken. "Doctor." Dr. Miller felt his eyes sting. "That's right," he said softly. "I'm here." They sat on opposite sides of the cell. The doctor spoke slowly. One sentence at a time. Daniel listened. His head tilted slightly. Like a child hearing language for the first time. The high moment came when Daniel spoke again. Not a whisper. Not a single word. But a sentence. Why was it so quiet? The room felt heavy. Dr. Miller chose his words carefully. "They thought it would help," he said. "They were wrong." Daniel nodded. "I forgot things," he said slowly. "I forgot faces. I forgot my voice." That was the truth no report had ever written. Silence did not just punish Daniel. It erased parts of him. Dr. Miller filed an emergency report. Not a request. A warning. "This inmate has suffered severe psychological harm due to prolonged isolation," he wrote. "Immediate change required." This time, the answer was different. Higher officials were involved. Lawyers read the file. Doctors reviewed footage. The prison could no longer pretend nothing was wrong. Daniel was moved. Not to freedom. But to a unit with light. With sound. With people. The first night was the hardest. Voices echoed down the hall. Doors closed. Footsteps passed. Daniel covered his ears. Too much. Too fast. A nurse spoke to him. "It's okay," she said. "You're safe." Daniel nodded. But his hands shook. Days passed. Then weeks. Daniel learned again. How to speak without whispering. How to look at faces. How to answer simple questions. The low moments still came. Some days, he stayed quiet. Some nights, he didn't sleep. Silence had left marks that did not fade easily. But something was different. When he spoke now, someone answered. The prison changed its rules. Not overnight. Not perfectly. But slowly. Long-term silence was reduced. Reviews were required. Doctors had more power. Daniel became a name in a report. Then a case. Then a warning. New guards were trained differently. Silence can be dangerous, they were told. People need people. Daniel still served his sentence. But he was no longer invisible. One afternoon, he sat in a common room. Other inmates nearby. A TV playing quietly. A guard walking past. Daniel spoke to another person for the first time in years. "What's your name?" he asked. The man answered. Just like that. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. But it mattered. Because silence had been used as punishment. And it had almost taken everything. This is the story of a prison where silence ruled. And of one man who survived years without human contact. Not because silence made him stronger. But because speaking again saved him. That is the end of the story.